Hey, friendly Dracula. I was just wondering, when you meet new people, do you let them know up front that you're a blood-sucking creature of the night, or do you let them figure that out for themselves? Oh, don't worry. Avernum. In today's humble opinion, we're standing divided in Avernum 2 Crystal Souls. Avernum 2 Crystal Souls is a turn-based fantasy adventure role-playing game developed and published by Spiderweb Software, and if I had to describe it in terms of other games, I'd say that it feels like a cross between Dungeons & Dragons, The Legend of Grimrock, and has the presentation of Dungeon Crawl Stone Soup. I don't think it takes a genius to figure out what that implies, but I'll go ahead and tell you that it's a pretty solid game. And I'm not just saying that because I ended up getting sucked into a 24-hour marathon, though that definitely serves to illustrate my point. At first I was wondering why the Humble Monthly would give us Avernum 2. Not because it wasn't the first Avernum, I don't expect them to give a damn about my personal need for continuity, and that's fine. Rather, when I looked up Avernum on the Steam store, it actually went up to Avernum 6, so what the actual fuck, why start us in the middle? Well, Avernum 2 Crystal Souls is actually a remake of a remake, and you guys thought that Hollywood was bad. The original series was called Exile, and it was a trilogy. The second installment was Exile 2 Crystal Souls. Then they remade the series, but rebranded it as Avernum, with the original Avernum 2 being titled Avernum 2. Funny how nature do that. Avernum 2 Crystal Souls is the third iteration, named to include the title of both of its predecessors. Despite its humble appearance, it was actually made in 2015, which means that it feels pretty modern in practice. The reason it looks older is because the studio claims that it prefers to focus on making the mechanics of the game fun rather than creating something that looks visually impressive, and it seems like they've kept to that, save for a few quality of life hangups that I personally have. Unlike their supposed claimed feature of having unique races that make Avernum feel different from any other adventure out there. Sorry Spiderweb, but there are many games out there that feature humans, cat people, lizard people, and women. Without saying too much, the gist of the story is that Avernum is an underground world that people get banished to when they do something particularly heinous. So you can bet that everyone down there is a murderer, a thief, or, you know, they wore white after Labor Day. Luckily, the caverns are massive and allow for everyone to unify and build civilization. They've got rivers for water, lizards for meat, and mushrooms to grow big and strong like an Italian. Also, luckily for them, the entire thing is pretty well lit thanks to an abundance of bioluminescent mushrooms growing from the ceiling. What's unlucky is that some of the people in Avernum decided to provoke the empire that banished them on the surface, and they started to invade as a response. While the Avernites were successful in holding them off for a little while, they are smaller in number, and they're beginning to get pushed back. And to make matters worse, weird-ass impenetrable magic barriers have appeared out of literally nowhere and divide everything up, halting trade, food supplies, and putting everyone in danger. Your job as a new recruit is to save the world. Daunting, I know, but Donald Trump didn't have any experience either, and he's doing okay, so, you know, find out what's causing the barriers and bring them down. Normally you'll find Avernum 2 Crystal Souls in the Steam store for the price of $19.99, which I would say is fair because it feels like it's got at least $20 worth of content. If you don't quite trust me, but still think the game looks interesting, wait for it to go on sale for $4.99, at which point it's practically a steal. Gameplay for Avernum 2 Crystal Souls earns a pretty respectable 8.5 out of 10. The game itself has a lot of content, the overworld is massive, and there are tons of huge, multi-layered dungeons and towns that make exploring worthwhile. Character creation and progression are both rewarding and open-ended, which lets you tune each character to your needs. Various styles of combat mean that you're constantly thinking about how you're going to respond to the battle as it unfolds, shifting your strategy to meet the needs presented, and the writing itself is charming and at many points humorous and amusing. There's just not a lot to complain about, but for you guys, I'll try. The first thing that got on my nerves was the pathing. If you try to attack something that your character can't reach but there's another route to it, your character will bolt off away from the fight and try to get to its target. Sometimes that alerts even more enemies to your location, and it always puts you out of position and puts stress on your other characters. There are many a times that I found myself sighing and saying, that's not what I meant to my game screen that can't even comprehend me. Another thing is that the big button in the lower middle part of your screen that's usually in turn for these types of games is Interpeace mode as opposed to in turn, which resets the positions of your characters after the next turn passes. I think that having a second button above it or perhaps below it wouldn't be unwarranted. I can click everything else, so having to hit space to end my turn is unintuitive for those of us that prefer the mouse to the keyboard. Even on the normal setting, the game is challenging, and while that's fun, I don't like having mechanics that make it harder unnecessarily. Value for Avernum 2 Crystal Souls earns a perfect 10 out of 10 for offering a fun and immersive gaming experience. It gives you something that you just don't want to put down. Everything about it is insanely rewarding. You've got a huge map to explore, secrets to uncover, battles to triumph over, a story to unfold, and it's all done so well that it doesn't feel like anything I've ever played before, though it certainly shares some elements with other games. With a composite score of 9.25, Avernum 2 Crystal Souls earns an A. If you're not put off by simplistic graphics and crave a compelling story with great mechanics, Avernum 2 Crystal Souls has exactly what you're looking for.